I heard it first as a scratch, real low. Almost lost it over the sound of tires cutting through wet asphalt. Light rain was falling. The street was empty in that way that looks like a bad movie set. But it was real. And I was there, alone, flashlight in hand, thinking maybe I'd heard things. I stopped the car. The cry that came next was stuck in its throat, muffled by layers of concrete. A low cry, short, like someone trying not to make noise. The storm drain grate at the corner of 7th and Industrial was crooked, lifted at one corner, like someone tried to open it and gave up halfway. The smell that came up wasn't just sewage. It was metallic. Rust mixed with raw flesh, sludge. And that sour smell of a place where water never dries. I knelt in the rain and pointed the flashlight at the opening. 2 points of light reflected back. 2 eyes looked back at me. It wasn't the look of a lost dog. It was the look of a dog that already figured out nobody's coming. 2 eyes that weren't asking for anything. When the flashlight beam steadied, I saw him. He was a mix, medium build. Had that athletic build of a hunting dog, but now he was just a rough draft of bone and skin. The coat was short, burnt caramel color, but full of bare patches like life was peeling off him. But what paralyzed me wasn't the skinny. It was the texture. He was so covered in ticks that his skin looked like it had grown a living crust. Thousands of them, gray, swollen with blood, piled on his eyelids so thick he could barely blink. The ears, which should have been floppy and soft, were heavy, deformed by hundreds of those parasites. The dirt had a life of its own. "Hey, easy, buddy." My voice came out weird. He tried to drag himself, but his back leg, long and thin, was stuck on something. He slipped on the slime, and his body hit the wall with a dry sound. That made me angry. Not at him, at the world. He was just skin and bone. You could count every vertebra in his spine through the sparse fur. I didn't wait. I pulled the cold grate and the metal screeched. Loud. Echoed inside, and he curled up completely. "It's okay. I'm not gonna hurt you." I lowered my arm slowly, carefully, using my jacket so I wouldn't scratch him. I touched his neck. The feeling was like touching small hot stones. He didn't growl, didn't try to bite, just pressed his snout, which should have been black, but was pale, anemic against my glove, and closed his eyes. Let out a whimper, like it was easier to just let it happen. When I pulled that trembling body into the light, I saw the rest. Around his neck was a white zip tie, a makeshift choke collar, tightened to the point of disappearing into the folds of inflamed skin. It wasn't a walking collar. It was a nylon strap fastened with a plastic zip tie. Tight, improvised, quick, cruel. He was a good-looking dog. You could tell. Had broad paws and a white patch on his chest, shaped like a lightning bolt, now stained brown and red. That wasn't an accident. That was a knot tied by human hands. I looked around. A bus passed in the distance. A store was closing up, and nobody looked. Nobody stopped. Like always. I got him to the car. Turned the heater on max and steam started rising from his skin. He was exactly the right size to fit in my lap, but felt like he weighed half what he should. He was shaking so hard it felt like the jacket was vibrating with him. "You hang in there a little longer," I said. "Just don't check out on me now." He kept looking at the dashboard with those amber eyes. Deep, struggling to keep his eyelids open. On the way he coughed twice, dry, and I felt that pressure in my chest that comes when you realize you might be minutes too late. The 24-hour clinic looked like a light aquarium in the middle of the wet city. Smell of disinfectant, floor shining. People used to seeing pain without falling apart. Dr. Reed saw me and didn't say anything. Didn't ask much. Just looked at the dog and made a serious face. "Where'd you get him, Miller?" "Storm drain." She let out air through her nose like the word was heavy. We put him on the table. Reed grabbed the pliers and cut the zip tie with small cutters. When the plastic snapped, his neck revealed a raw mark, no fur. The dog didn't even react. Not a jump. Not a flinch. That was the part that hurt the most. 3 hours of tweezers and silence. She started removing ticks with tweezers one by one. No rush, no drama. The metal bucket kept filling with parasites, and ARGO kept appearing. And I stood there beside, watching, thinking about how long someone lets an animal get to this point. Under that crust, the skin was white and pink, full of bites. He was a survivor. "Does he have a name?" she asked. "Don't know." Miller, Reed called me. She grabbed the microchip reader and passed it near his shoulder. Beep. She stopped. Passed it again. Beep. He's chipped, she said, surprised. And that was quick. Quick how? I asked. The code wasn't normal. It was an inventory chip from Mercer Bioscience. Reed frowned, looking at the little screen. This type of registration isn't common for a street dog. I felt the back of my neck go cold. She pulled up the record on the computer. I saw the name that was there. ARGO. ARGO. Pointer mix. But the owner part wasn't a person's name. It was a company. And the status was listed as deactivated, discarded due to contamination, transfer pending. I stared at that and felt like laughing, but there was nothing funny. What do you mean deactivated? I asked. Reed took a deep breath. Usually they only deactivate if someone requests removal, or registers as dead, or if it's an internal control chip. The word dead hung in the air for a second, and I saw Argo breathing there, weak but alive, like he'd escaped a death sentence. I asked Reed to print what she could, no fuss. She printed it. I folded the paper and put it in my pocket like someone storing a lit match, because I didn't know yet how big the fire was, but I could already feel the heat. I spent the night watching Mercer. On the street, the rain felt colder. The registration address took me to an industrial area, the kind the city pretends doesn't exist. Cold warehouses, yellow lights, high walls, camera on every corner. Way too much white light. I stopped in front of the gate at 6:10 in the morning when I saw movement. A guard at the booth looked at me like I was an overdue bill. I went in, showed my badge. I need to talk to whoever's in charge. About what? About a dog with a registration link to this address. I found him in a storm drain. The guard already knew who I was. He didn't ask what dog. Just stood there, and I saw his hand going to the radio slowly, kind of shaking. Tell Kessler the drain waste from 7th is back, I said. 1 minute, he said. The gate opened slow, no rush, like this place had time, and I didn't. Inside the air was dry, cold. Strong smell of chemicals, everything too clean. Dr. Kessler greeted me with expensive coffee, with an immaculate lab coat and a trained smile. Detective Miller. She said my name like she already knew me. I showed her the paper. ARGO. Her reaction was small, almost invisible, but I saw it. I always see it. There was an error in protocol, she said. The animal had a reaction to a compound. The tech panicked. That doesn't prove ownership, she said quickly. Could be. The problem has a name, I answered, throwing Argo's photo on the desk. He's a caramel pointer, 2 years old, and has a hole in his neck because of you guys. He was in a storm drain. The smile stayed. The eyes didn't. She leaned in. Take the money and forget the drain. She took a step closer and lowered her voice, like she was offering a favor. If you want to avoid trouble, we'll cover everything. Treatment costs. And this ends here. That's when the normal conversation ended. Because nobody makes an offer like that over a drain dog, unless they're scared of what the dog brings with it. I didn't take it. I want to see the internal record for this microchip, I said. Restricted area. I'm not asking. There was silence. She sized me up. Tried to find a way to bend me. Didn't find one. 5 minutes, she said, dry. And no recording. The door opened to a cold hallway. White light. Constant hum of ventilation. Footsteps echoing. And then I heard it. I left there, hearing the sound of other paws hitting cages. A short scratch. Muffled, like nails tapping on plastic. I stopped. What's that sound? Nothing, she answered too fast. I walked toward the sound. She tried to block my path, but I moved around her. I looked through the window in a door. Other pointers. Other mutts. All being used as living filters. I'm not going to tell you what I saw. Not because I'm trying to be mysterious, but because the important thing there wasn't what it was. It was the vibe of cover-up. It was the rush to hide. It was life in there, and someone doing everything so nobody would look. I turned to her. You said you didn't have this here. Her face went blank for a second, like the mask slipped. It's temporary, she let out. Temporary for what? She didn't answer. And then I noticed a different badge half hidden in the lab coat pocket. Another name. Another company, outsourced. Front. This wasn't just about ARGO. It was about who was holding the lid down. ARGO didn't fall in the drain. He was thrown in there like evidence that should rot. But he refused to die. I left without yelling, without making a scene. Because scenes disappear. Proof stays. In the car, my hands were shaking on the wheel. I took a deep breath and called Reed. Keep ARGO there. Don't let anyone visit. If anyone calls asking about him, you call me right away. Miller, what's going on? She asked. He didn't fall in the drain, I said. He was put there. That night I went back to the drain. It was raining again. Of course it was raining. I examined the rusty edge, passing the flashlight slowly, and I found silver tape stuck to the metal, small, almost invisible, with a numbering pattern that didn't look like street stuff. I kept that as evidence. And right there I closed the case. ARGO didn't show up by accident. He escaped. 2 days later, he could stand up for a few seconds. Today his coat grew back. The caramel is shiny, and the lightning bolt patch on his chest is white as snow, shaking less, looking more like he was relearning what it's like to be in a place where nobody's trying to erase you. I sat on the floor next to him. No glove, just my hand. You don't need to be tough, I whispered. Just stay here. He pressed his snout against my palm, light, slow, testing if this was real. I swallowed hard. Because I've seen a lot of cases on the street, but there are some that get inside you different. He's still a medium-sized dog, but his heart is huge. He doesn't chase balls. He prefers to lie down by the door, watching the world. The rest wasn't a movie. It was paperwork. It was people faking. It was closed doors. It was pushing blame down, like always. But there was one thing they couldn't erase. ARGO existed, and someone tried to make him disappear. In the end, I didn't adopt ARGO. I know. A lot of people expect that. But I live on the street in sirens, in late nights, in danger. And he already had too many people coming and going. Who adopted him was Reed. She didn't make a speech, didn't post anything, didn't announce it. She just showed up with a simple leash and said, "He's going home, today." She gave him a house where the water comes from a clean bowl, not from a sewer. I knelt down, petted behind his ear. "ARGO," I said quietly, "you're not a file." He looked at me, and that look wasn't the look of a forgotten animal anymore. Sometimes I stop by. He looks at me with those amber eyes, and I know he remembers. I left the clinic and let the rain hit my face, like I needed to remember I was still here. He knows that in the darkness of that drain. We both found a reason to keep fighting. If this story got to you, comment ARGO down below. No fancy words. If you think no animal deserves to be treated like trash, subscribe to the channel. There's way too many cases out there. The city prefers to keep in the dark.